Hey everybody, it is always so great to connect with you in Youth Month, and it's also my birthday month. So happy birthday to me, and happy birthday to. It's a significant month. June 16 is a honest memory of how young people took their destiny into their own hands. They made a call to say, education is an empowering tool. They made a call to say we reject the idea that to be educated in Afrikaans so that the destiny of young people is to work in farms was an idea they rejected. And I want to inspire young people and say to them, let's draw on that spirit, because freedom is never won, as Coretta Scott King said. It is always fought for in every generation. And no one is going to grant you your freedom. You got to keep fighting for it. And so to all the young people, I want to wish you a very happy Youth Month. And of course, like many South Africans, want to reflect deeply on just the scourge of gender-based violence we face in our country and just how many women are being killed. And so I'm deeply pained by the fact that we live in a country where, as a father of two girls, I fear for their life and I fear for their future. And I fear that their freedoms are being curtailed as they have to think twice about which Uber they get in, which guy they give their number to, who they travel with. I would hate for them to go through that experience, and I hate for any citizen to go through it. But more than anything, I fear that part of the dilemma of our country is that issue. And therefore, as a member of parliament and as a South African, as a father, I want to send my deep condolences to all the families who have lost loved ones, even in this time, to this chronic pandemic that is gender-based violence, where women are being killed. And now back to Parliament. This week we had a fascinating experience. I watched, like every one of you, on social media as the Minister of Higher Education arrived in a portfolio committee, chewing gum nonetheless, and literally nonchalantly asking questions. It kind of was a parody and a parallel about what society is going through. Here, we have young people who are battling to find work. 2 out of 3 young people cannot find jobs. Here, we're living in a country where, in essence, the potential of our young people is being limited in the fact that when you look at the skill of the current workforce, we're ranked 101 out of 141. When you look at the quality of vocational training, we're ranked 119 out of 141. So this is the story, and this is the story that should obsess the minister. It should be something that she arrives to thinking to herself, how do I improve the skill set of young South Africans that are going through? It tells a story about the fact that the majority of people who do not work actually don't have a matric. It tells a story about the fact that we literally, in sectors of the economy that are growing and are job absorbers, we don't have the skills based for. This is a story that says there are 16.8 million South Africans who are employed, and out of those who are employed, we have 3.3 million in the informal sector. We've got just 1 million in private households and 1 million who are farm workers. In essence, we have 5 million low-skilled workers in the workforce. And this tells you that if we really want to build our economy, we've got to begin to see an improvement. The story cannot be that 1 in 3 of South Africa's workers is a low-skilled worker. We have to do everything to shift that. And so this question about SETAs and the National Skills Fund becomes central to this issue and why we fund. I deal with the budget in South Africa, and SETAs, the National Skills Fund, these are out, if you like. They do not show up in the Division of Revenue Bill or the Appropriations Bill. They sit as these extensions that sit elsewhere. But the dilemma is we appropriate money towards them, and we need to see bang for our buck, because the future economies will be wholly based on a demand for skills. So, Minister, when you arrived and you are asked questions about credibility, asked questions about how you look to reform that, things must be serious. And I worry that the Minister of Higher Education refused to simply answer the question. Let me say this categorically clear. I believe young people must go to university. I believe they must go to vocational training. I believe we need to up the skills level of this country. I think SETAs must be better done. must ensure that actually we develop skills in this country. But let me be frank, I do not believe NSFAS is the route to go. Because often people say, well, if you don't support NSFAS, you mean young people mustn't go to university. That's nonsense. I think universities are quite capable of being able to identify the right learners to be able to attract them. All I've seen of the NSFAS board is not only appointments that are at times, I think to myself, are not fit for purpose or credible. All I have seen is actually an institution that acts as a middleman, funnels money, and doesn't achieve the things that we need to do. And it is true for many of the SETAs. Because they don't account in many instances, you find these are just appointments for boards, for people to have cousins, to have friends, to have families. It just becomes a place where people earn money for doing very little. And I'm uncertain that we're actually delivering the things that we need to deliver. So with all of that budget, with all of that money and manpower, could we do better? Could we not think hard about scrapping these SETAs, scrapping these agencies, taking that money and actually having a skills revolution in this country? Actually committing ourselves to say, how do we change and use all of these levies into one funding space so that we can develop the skills output of this country, improve education, ensure that young people are able to get a better output. So I am here to argue more strongly that with all the money that we have, with all the skills and the legislation that we have around this issue, we're now better off saying, how do we capacitate education? How do we digitize our education so that more young people can get through? And how do we ensure that the proportions as to who ends up at university becomes improved and more in favor of what it looks like in our population? Because in truth, as we sit right here today, the graduates that we're producing that are entering the higher education space are insufficient to meet the economies of the future. Now is the time to change. And what we need is a minister who's not chewing gum, but rather a minister who's committed to a skills revolution. So minister, stop chewing gum and focus on making sure that we've got better graduates. That would help you. It will help our country. It will mean ultimately we've got more people who are employable and ultimately more people who are not only employed but are job creators. So let's bring about the change. Now is the time. God bless.